Let's start with Venezuela. We hear from the Pentagon today that they have great reservations about being involved in a conflict in Venezuela. I have to ask you, when did the Pentagon get a vote that they would have a voice separate from that of the commander-in-chief publicly?
I'm not sure I buy that, Lou. I mean, there are people circling the Pentagon like they are circling the White House, trying to pick up anything that they can that would create some kind of division in this administration. Here's what the Pentagon just routinely does. The President, National Security Advisor, will ask the Pentagon to provide a series of options.
Surely. And
with every option, they'll provide the risk associated with that.
Right.
Now, before this report, I guarantee you the Pentagon has prevented non-kinetic options and a range of kinetic options to include full-throated invasion and what that would mean. All of that has already been on the table.
One would hope.
I haven't asked them, but I'm just confident of it.
If you're confident, I'm confident.
And so that's kind of where we are. And there's only one person running foreign policy and national security in the United States of America, and that's the President of the United States. And I've seen that, not like his advisors that are with him every day, but I've seen a little bit of that up close. I don't want to make a big deal out of it. I'm not on a frequency that anybody else does. But I've seen it, and he is in fact in charge.
Well, there's no question about that on every front. What strikes me is that this is not the first time we've heard this kind of nonsense emanating from ostensibly a general officer in the Pentagon. And it's irksome. It suggests that of all the people who wouldn't understand the chain of command, or who shouldn't be in any way ever separating themselves with even the slightest ray of sunlight from the commander-in-chief, it would be our military.
Well, we've got people there, obviously, who have opinions that may not even agree with the Secretary of Defense or the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs or the Joint Chiefs as a whole in terms of what their recommendations are, and they're talking to the media and they're trying to undermine what's taken place. That has happened for far too long, and likely it will continue, to be frank about it. As disappointing as that is.
Well, it is disappointing. It's infuriating. And why don't we go do something about it?
It's good for you because it gets you riled up.
Well, that's what I need. Just one more thing to rile me up, right, General? Let's talk about Afghanistan, the Taliban announcing the spring offensive. I mean, think about that, announcing the spring offensives as if it were necessary to do so. This is a tough spot. What do we do?
Well, the Taliban clearly, they're using the spring offensive as leverage in the peace talks, which are coming up in about a week. I'm very skeptical about these peace talks. I don't particularly agree with the position that we've taken with the Taliban, because we have been talking to them and not bringing in the government of Afghanistan to participate in that. The last time we did something like that was the Vietnam War, where we talked to the North Vietnamese. Some of our viewers too young to remember all of this, to be sure. And then we presented that as a fait accompli to the South Vietnamese government, and 18 months later it was over. We've got to talk to the government of Afghanistan, and we've got to bring the other players in as well if we're going to get something out of this. And we cannot, and I say again, we cannot trust the Taliban. These are fanatics, they're radicals, they're barbarians. 85% of the people for all these years that you've been talking about this war, these 18 years, the people of Afghanistan overwhelmingly reject them to 85%. They don't want them to run their country again.
And yet here we are in talks with them. I've got to ask you, is there any part of you that wishes like hell that the United States would have taken off the gloves and absolutely eliminated the Taliban and destroyed every one of the people responsible in Afghanistan who've now, it looks like, persevered against the world's only superpower over the course of almost 2 decades?
We had two big opportunities. One is we deposed them, and then we had to build, this back in 2001,
right.
We had to build a security force quickly enough to secure that government. But a few weeks after we deposed them, we made a decision to go to Iraq. And at that point, all of our priorities went to Iraq. Afghanistan was on a diet. Lou, we never put troops into Afghanistan after the Taliban reemerged until late 2008 under Bush. And then Obama knew he had a problem. He asked McChrystal and Petraeus, tell me what we should do. They said, we can still win, minimum force 40,000. He cut them by 25%, and he pulled them out after 15 months. We were doomed at that point.
A concise history of one of the most tragic conflicts.
It was U.S. policies, Lou. These guys are not 10 foot tall. We easily could have put them where they belong.
More is the shame, more is the tragedy. General, thanks
Yeah,
as
good talking
always.
to you, Lou.
Appreciate it.